hear about today is what the impact is of this missing $80 million that the federal government has committed. It's the normal funding we have through several title programs. So it's Title I for 1C for supplemental support for students, Title IIA for teacher training, and that's $26 million. Title IIIA, $11 million to help students learn English. Title IVA, flexible block grants, $13.5 million for school-specific needs. That's very flexible. And Title IVB, that's the out-of-time academic enrichment. So, I want to hear, these are all things that you would expected and built into your budgets. And I guess at this point, I'm unsure what's happening, which is a very absurd situation to figure out, because many of you rely on this for your after-school programs, your summer programs. You have teachers who don't know if they have jobs at this point, and this is not funding schools have on hand, but it's funding that was in the budget because it was appropriated by Congress. It's supposed to be on its way, and now we simply don't know. So we're, as you know, we've set up an effort to defend federal money that we expect to get. We've successfully defended over $282 million. I don't yet know the prospects on this $80 million. We're certainly going to fight to get it, because we want to hear why we need it. The whole cut for every dollar Coloradans pay into Washington taxes, we only get 90 cents back already. So this is actually making that deal even worse. But the goal is really to give me a chance to learn about the funding that's at stake, how you use it, what happens if you don't get it, how we can manage the impact of this, and your hopes for what we can do with it to help students achieve if we are able to get it back. I want to give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then we will begin the roundtable. Why don't we start with you, Melissa?
Melissa Gibson, Executive Director of the Colorado Association of School Executives. We represent about 3,600 public school leaders and district leaders from across the state.
Kate Bartlett, I'm the superintendent in Lake County and Leadville.
Dr. Katie Allen, she, her, hers. I am a third grade math and science teacher at Florida Pitt Waller in Denver Public Schools. I'm also a senior team lead, which is a coach to other educators.
Dr. Simone Wright, Chief Academic Officer for Denver Public Schools.
I'm Michelle Horowitz, she, her. I'm a bilingual speech-language pathologist at Webster Dual Language School here in Northwest Denver.
Tracy Dorland, Superintendent at Jefferson County Public Schools.
Stuart Jenkins, Colorado Alliance, Boys and Girls Clubs of Colorado, the Executive Director, which represents 17 clubs across the state of Colorado, serving 70,000 out-of-school age kids, and also on the board of the Colorado After School Partnership.
And we're going to hear from Stuart, because this isn't just schools. The Title IVB is out-of-school academic enrichment programs, and one of the providers that we all know about, very well known, probably the best known in the state, Boys and Girls Clubs. I've been to many of your clubs, and you really do great work. So I'm going to turn it over to Wayne Peel, the CFO of the Department of Education, to kind of give the state perspective. This is obviously money that flows right to districts and to after-school activities, but sort of what this means in the aggregate, I want Wayne to describe, and then we want to hear kind of what it means on the ground.
Appreciate that, Governor. Wayne Peel, Chief Financial Officer of the Colorado Department of Education. And to provide a little bit of context, I want to just mention that historically speaking, we would receive the dollars and preliminary allocations from the federal government sometime in the spring, and we would get those and be able to share those with the districts and move that forward. Well, this year, though, we received notification on June 30th that Titles 1C, 2A, 3A, 4A, and 4B, as mentioned by the governor, were under review. And based on this notice, Colorado has not received more than $70 million in federal dollars, $80 million roughly if you include adult education programs, for this funding for the 25-26 school year. These dollars are being counted on by the districts and are part of their budgets that they created for this upcoming school year for stuff like recruit and retain great teachers, counselors, and specialists, support school-based programs for music, art, and STEM, offer tutoring and after-school learning opportunities, and provide services for students who are learning English and instructional support for children of agricultural workers. These programs help ensure that every child, no matter where they live, has the opportunity to grow, learn, and succeed. The potential loss of these funds does threaten that promise. This is kind of unprecedented in terms of the timing and the level of uncertainty around these funds, and I think that's the big challenge that we're dealing with, is that we move forward understanding that these funds are appropriated by Congress, and we're anticipating these funds as we normally would receive them. And so we are deeply concerned about the impact on Colorado's 881,000 students and their families, and the ability of the districts to plan for those needs. We have been working with our State Board of Education, Colorado State leaders, including Governor Polis and his team, our congressional delegation, and partners like CASE and others who are here today to elevate the critical role of federal funding in our state and across the country. You can find more information on district-specific dollar impacts from these funding sources on our website. It has a kind of a map by district of dollar impact, and it can be found at cdeinfo.org/funding. Again, cdeinfo.org/funding. This is very real and urgent for planning purposes so that we can understand how to move forward and meet the needs of the children. Because the school's going to be opening up again here pretty quick in the next few weeks. So I appreciate the opportunity to engage in this discussion, and thank you.
Well, let's begin at the district level. We have Lake and Jeffco here. What changes do you have to make if these funds are frozen at the start of the school year? Are you already making them? I know your hiring is hopefully mostly complete for the school year. Are there jobs that are affected by this? And how do you cover for the work that those teachers or others do in the classroom? And what might look different for students or educators or families if this money remains frozen? We can begin with Lake County. Okay.
Great, thank you, Governor, for having us today. Of these funds, we received three of the streams, Title II, Title III, and then we have several 21st Century Community Learning Centers grants. The 21st Century dollars are by far the biggest impact for us. It's almost $400,000 out of a total budget for our out-of-school time that is $600,000.
So that's 2/3 of your
that's
budget.
2/3. Yeah. I think important context in Leadville is that 70% of our families commute out of the county for work. Typically over the hill, as we say, in Eagle County or in Summit County. It's not unusual for parents to be gone from 7 in the morning until 6 at night. We've held 21st Century grants since 2009. We provide after-school programs and programs on Friday when the district is not in session. And I can't overstate how embedded this program is in the fabric of our community. Our students get, of course, breakfast and lunch at school, but through our out-of-school time programs, they get snack, and we even offer a to-go dinner, amongst other things. Great, really rich programming that is both academic and enrichment level programming. For example, my husband teaches bagpipes in our out-of-school time programming. So it's both fun and enriching and supporting basic needs for students. If these funds don't materialize, we've got a couple of choices. We can either reduce staff and run a lean version of our current offering, or we can reduce hours, days, and overall services to students and families. We're in the process of making that decision. So I would say, if I had to sum up the impacts, it's an earthquake. Our families are already working unbelievably long hours to live in a community where the cost of living has far outpaced wage growth. And I do worry about the economic impact on the community locally and regionally if parents suddenly have to say, 1, 2, or 4 days a week, I now need to leave work at 3:30.
And Tracy Dorland, you're one of the larger districts, the biggest districts in the state. How do these different things affect you? There's obviously more zeros than it is for Lake County, but what does that mean in putting together what the services will look like for families as students get ready for school?
Yeah, so across these grants, Jeffco receives approximately $3 million in funding. We have also some carryover from last year that we have budgeted to spend this year. So it's a total of about $3.3 million in Jeffco that we're struggling to figure out what we do next. In Title II, we pay for teacher induction as well as teacher time. And so we all know, coming into the profession, how important it is to support our new educators. and provide them mentorship and professional learning from peers, former teachers who are more veteran in their field and more experienced. So we're very worried about how to supplement those funds and redesign that program without this funding. In addition, the best professional learning that teachers can have is learning from one another, and we all know that teachers need time outside the classroom to learn and grow together. And so we also fund some of that time through our Title II funds for teachers to really hone their craft and become better at their profession. So that's a real struggle in terms of just teacher time, which we're always looking for. Our Title III funds newcomer program in Jeffco. We are 800 square miles, and our impacts of newcomers is not as concentrated as you might find in other districts. We have newcomers at all 150 of our schools. And so we have a central group, small but mighty, a mobile welcome center, and teams who speak multiple languages, that when a newcomer student arrives in a school building, our schools call us and the newcomer mobile welcome center arrives. They support the family with making sure they get through the enrollment process. They support the family with basic needs, whether it be diapers, formula, books for the children, you name it, getting them connected to community resources. And it's just been a huge and tremendous support for our schools so that they can focus on supporting the students with the learning and not necessarily all the wraparound services, but also ensuring that the families get the wraparound services that they need. So that's probably one of my biggest worries, is how we're going to support that. And that's nearly $500,000 that we invest in that program. And then Title IV is a bunch of student re-engagement. We all know post-COVID how challenging the attendance issue has been. We've talked about it at the state level. We've put a lot of energy in Jeffco into getting that attendance rate back up. If kids aren't in school, they're not learning. And so we have re-engagement specialists that have actually helped us improve our attendance rate over time out of Title IV, and that's a real struggle in terms of thinking about how to help our schools get our kids to school. So those are the impacts that we're working on in Jeffco. Right now, we are giving ourselves about a month to analyze where we're at and try to figure it out. I want to say, Wayne talked about the unprecedented timing of this. It is absolutely absurd that this has been budgeted for, that we have planned for these funds.
Every district across the country, by the way.
Every district across the country. We have planned for these funds. We have hired into positions to support these programs. It's an impact not only on our students, which is the most important impact, but it's also an impact on our workforce and the educators and support professionals who fill these positions. And it's just, frustrating.
No, Melissa, thank you for helping to set this up. I appreciate you as well. And you kind of are at a place where you hear many stories from many principals, heads of schools, superintendents. So what would you like to highlight that you've heard? And then we'll go to some folks that are on the ground.
Sure. Certainly echo the points that Superintendent Dorland, Superintendent Bartlett raised. I would say that for districts to learn this less than 24 hours before they expected to receive these funds, that they in fact would not be receiving the funds, that they would be withheld, was absolutely shocking. You've heard here today, these aren't extra nice to have services that are being impacted. These are truly fundamental, essential services that in many cases support our students who need them the most. So they fund things like math and literacy interventionists to ensure students are successful in school in those areas. Funds things like after-school programs, which are essential to students and to their families. And of course, critical professional development. Colorado faces a teacher shortage crisis. So to have funds like that impacted that are meant to support and ensure teachers do the best job possible in their classroom for students is incredibly upsetting. I would say what we have heard over and over is that the impact across communities is devastating.
Thank you. And it all ties to academic achievement. One of the goals in Denver, I always forget Denver and Jeffco. Who's the biggest right now? You are. It goes back and forth. So you're the biggest district in the state. And that's a lot of students whose academic achievement is going to be impacted by funds that you thought were coming. How do you see that affecting kind of the academic side of DPS's goal of helping students achieve?
Yeah, our proud superintendent has been clear. We're in the business of moving achievement of our most historically underserved and underestimated students. So even building on the points made around Title III, 1 in every 3 DPS student is a multilingual learner. And Title III helps to ensure that we're building the capacity of educators on the ground so that each student is not only getting content expertise and skill building, but they're also growing their English proficiency. And I think very just concretely for DPS, we have a multilingual education team. There are about 11.6 FTE that will be eliminated, and that would directly impact the support we can provide schools on the ground.
These are folks that go out to the schools and provide support.
Work in the schools with senior team leads, with assistant principals, to ensure every student is served effectively. I think I would also double down on this piece around teacher training. Our leadership week onboarding for our team leads are in 3 weeks. Like that, the money to pay them to ensure they are prepared to serve our kids, like that is going to happen. Like we will have to figure it out on the back end, like how to sort of like account for this. But it's unacceptable for our senior team leads, our teachers, to start the school year and not be prepared to serve our kids.
Well, I'm really glad we have 2 teachers here, Katie and Michelle. I hope that you're not funded through these streams and could lose your job. But I know that you, even if you're not, you work with people in your schools who are. Maybe you can talk about in a school, on the ground, you interact with people that are absolutely critical, funded through these streams. What does this mean to you if this money isn't unfrozen and simply disappears?
Wonderful points have been made so far. I think building off of Simone's point about specific to multilingual learners and our ELD students, our MLL students. As a coach, I get to teach the morning with students and have wonderful starts to my day. I get to work with some ECE students through my coaching as well as my 3rd grade class, and it starts my day off really well. But then I transition in the afternoon to coach other teachers in math, art, ELD, and EC classrooms. And I'm extremely concerned if we lose our amazing resources downtown, who I am not an expert in multilingual education yet. I might get there, but I want to support my ELD teachers as best as I possibly can. Losing out resources through people, losing out resources through time, which as an educator is one of our most important resources, could be absolutely devastating. And we know whatever impacts our educators ultimately impacts our students. And I do not want to lose out on those resources that support our most historically marginalized students and the ones that need it the most.
Michelle.
As a speech language pathologist, I work in special education, and so I also work with students who are twice identified, who have disabilities, who are also learning a second language, and the training and supports that are needed within our schools for all of the educators that are supporting those students are really essential. And I can see a lot of students slipping through the cracks if we don't have those layers of support built around an individual classroom. The kids that need the most supports aren't going to get what they need, and the discrepancies, the gaps are going to grow. And I think educators are tired of doing more with less. It's really an exhausting profession to begin with, and we have our hearts and our souls in this work, and there's only so much you can do with the resources that you have. And so we need to make sure that we are tightening up as much as we can to really ensure that we can continue to help students grow.
And before we go to after school programs, I want to ask our superintendents, when do you have to let people know they don't have jobs if this money doesn't unfreeze? What's kind of that drop dead date? I mean, presumably this was going to pay their salaries starting July 1st for many of them, I think. It's not there yet. Have you already told people that they don't have a job, or are you kind of waiting, still hopeful this money will come back, and how soon does that have to happen before you have to tell people the bad news?
We started in Jeffco with a couple of individuals. One of the biggest challenges is because of supplanting rules with these grants. If we move positions or programs into the general fund away from these grants and then get the money released, we can no longer then move it back into the grant. And so we are combing through what we're using these funds for and making some decisions, but we have already started to talk to impacted individuals in Jeffco. Some of it is timing on payroll and when the new fiscal year begins. So for administrators, we need to let them know in July. We're also trying to figure out if we don't have these funds and we have an open position that this person qualifies for, we can actually get them into a different position so they're not just out of job. So, you know, there's a lot of moving parts. For teachers, we'll need to let them know by August. So we're just sort of waiting a little bit longer on some of the teaching, not all the teaching positions, but some of them, because we're hoping that maybe somebody will wake up and deliver these funds to the state of Colorado.
And I have a question. Do the teachers that are affected, do they know that they might not have a job? Do they know they're funded through this particular title, most of them, or is it kind of often invisible to teachers?
So in our case, our staffing impacts are going to be an out-of-school time program.
Sure.
So I have let potentially impacted staff know, and I'd say we're on about a 10-day clock.
You need to find out in 10 days if this money is going to flow.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a good transition to after-school programs, Stuart. We talked about the district side, but many parents, can't pick up their kids till 5:30. There's also a lot of advantages for meaningful work in academics after the school day. And one of the larger funds that are missing is the Title IV-B, which is $13 million for out-of-school time, and Boys and Girls Club is one of the partners with many school districts for those funds. How does this affect you for Boys and Girls Clubs across Colorado, and what are you hearing?
Thank you, Governor, for convening this conversation. So for Boys and Girls Clubs, two of our major metro clubs, Metro Denver and in Pueblo County, received $1.9 million in 21st century grants. As you mentioned, we are one of many nonprofit community-based organizations that receive 21st century grants around the state, serving over 13,000 kids. Our Boys and Girls Clubs in Pueblo County and Metro Denver serve over 2,000 kids at 13 sites with these funds. These impacts are significant, and we've been having to prepare our budgets as of July 1 for the potential loss of this funding. I want to echo the point made about worrying about these kids slipping through the cracks. And in Pueblo County in particular, roughly 90% of school-age kids live in poverty. And six out of the 9 Pueblo County sites are funded by 21st Century.
Can I just add, by the way, that Pueblo is one of our many districts that has a 4-day school week, and so for that 5th day, Boys and Girls Club is an absolutely critical partner for the full day.
Absolutely. So our clubs step up to provide transportation for kids, provide academic enrichment, tutoring, help them recover the learning loss that we've seen from the pandemic, and ensure that they are supervised in safe spaces. We worry that these kids will have no safe space to go in Pueblo if these funds don't come through.
And are you also have to figure this out, you feel, in the next couple weeks? I mean, otherwise you might have to start notifying parents and others that the services they were expecting won't be available?
Yes, it's a similar time crunch of weeks and months. We're working to scramble to find additional funding, go to our philanthropic partners, partner with our school districts, but we want to serve as many kids as possible. But if these funds don't come through, we'll have to reduce the number of hours, reduce the number of kids that we serve as the weeks and months drag on.
Yeah, and of course we talked briefly about when you have to let staff know. There's also the matter of letting parents know what services won't be available for their kids, whether you have to cut back on hours. Can you support English language learners in your school, or will some parents have to change schools over to a school where they might get a different kind of support that's no longer available from your district? So these are very difficult things that are just getting on people's radar. And there's still a chance, we hope, that this decision will be reversed, the funds will be unfreezed. But as you said, this has to happen in the next week or two, because decisions are being made, and obviously you all have to be fiscally responsible and make the decisions you need to make, and you can't spend money that isn't coming, or you don't know if it's coming. Let's open it up a little bit. I want to hear your other observations. We also will give our friends from the media a chance to ask questions. But what else should we know as Coloradans?
I'll just build on something that Dr. Wright said when she said, we will figure this out. So I think my guess is that the chaos of this is part of the point, and that part of the purpose of this sort of very rapid fire uncertainty, well, it certainly decreases our trust, but what I'm not going to let it do is decrease my family's trust in our school district. So that's where I'm really focused, is what can I do right now that is trust building in an environment where our trust has been broken so far by the federal government. But you know, we don't underestimate how scrappy everyone is at this table, and we will hustle, and we will do our very best not to let kids and families slip through the cracks. But my personal commitment is I do not want to let this erode trust in public education writ large, and especially in my school district.
Yeah, I think people recognize that teachers and principals and districts are doing what they can. It's simply a loss of funding from the federal government that was expected and built into your budgets and has been there, that is causing these, you know, any difficult changes.
Yeah, you know, when a student shows up on our doorstep, we serve them, and we serve them as best we can. But I do think it's very challenging in public education when we're constantly asked to do more with less. We have no choice in the matter, and we will, as you said, like the educator's heart, take care of kids every day. But it is a huge impact when the funding we were planning on is not showing up, and it's at the 11th hour, and we're scrambling.
And I would add, you know, so just so folks know, right, schools are funded by local tax revenue, state, and federal. Usually in that order. In some districts it's state first, but usually local, state, and then federal. And the state, you knew what you were going to get when I signed the School Finance Act. That was in April. So you knew, and you were able to build your budgets. Usually, the federal piece has been very predictable. And you also would know in April, you even have the funds dispersed in spring. I think you said April, usually, or
April, May.
April, May. Not only would you know how much the funds would actually be dispersed. The state's more stingy. We don't disperse till July 1st, but we now get dispersed. So you can get advances if you need it. But you know, so you know what you're going to get from the state. Local, you know, because that's based on property tax assessment and mill levies, and it can change, but not only through assessment periods, and you have a lot of warning. This is the first time I've ever heard of it being last minute, even after the fact. I mean, as you said, some of these funds were literally going to people that normally would be hired in July, many in August. And so you are uncertain with zero time to go. It seems, have you ever experienced anything like that in public education?
I think it's just worth naming. The fiscal year started.
Yes.
Like the money we're talking about is already accounted for, and kids will be here in 6 weeks.
Yep. Yep, and and you don't know. I mean, you can, you know, you have to make, if you're not going to get it, you have to make those tough decisions. You might be able to kind of float it for a few weeks, but you can't, you know, you don't have the money that isn't coming. And nobody knows at this point.
I just want to say, educators are creative. We figure it out, but there's going to be a cost, and if it's not, you know, it's human cost, it's students suffering, like something's gonna give.
And I just want to say, this $80 million, that's a lot of money for Colorado schools, but in addition, it's $80 million that through these programs is often targeted to the students that need it the most. So it's not, quote, sort of just $80 million, a universal across the board rescission. That would be bad enough and horrific enough. But it's actually targeted towards students that need it the most, who are eligible for after school or Boys and Girls Club, the work you do in Lake County with people that are working 60 hours a week and commuting, the work for English language learners, the work for students in poverty. So this $80 million cut would disproportionately affect the students who need the help the most, that you work with in the classroom every day, and that count on that. Let's go to our friends here from the press and see what questions you have for our panel.
This question, this might be more for Wayne. Has there been any communication with the federal government about the freezing of these funds and the so-called review that they're doing? Has there been any exchange of documents?
thus far, we have not received any communication around specifics like you're asking about. It's just been a vague under review information. That's all we've received thus far.
And I would add, this is every district in the country at this point. None of them have been unfrozen. To my knowledge, they're all frozen. I did bring this up with Secretary McMahon 2 weeks ago. She has indicated that it is with OMB. We've heard that informally as well, Office of Management and Budget. But we have it's opaque to us. We don't know what's going on in there and whether they're going to rescind this money, fund this money, or create some new bureaucratic application process for this money. We don't know what's going to happen. Very little time to do it.
Jessica, Post.
Yeah, this is for the superintendents. Can you provide more details on the positions you're going to cut in terms of how many positions are going to have to be eliminated, are the positions that are already filled, or those you're going to hire for?
In Jeffco, there are positions that are already filled. We've been budgeted and hiring all spring, and most people are already in the positions. I'm not able to share more detail at this time, given the sensitivity of our timelines and making sure that I'm respectful of the individuals who are impacted.
I would say exactly what Superintendent Dorland said. In our case, the numbers are a lot lower, but I'm hesitant to give more detail as well.
Are they also positions that are already filled, or?
Yes, already filled.
And that would be very normal by now, because I mean, it's always possible there'd be a few that weren't, but I mean the goal of any district would be to have them filled by at this point, where administrative staff's already coming back and your teachers are reporting in just 3 weeks or so. Yeah.
Kids are coming in 5 to 6.
Governor, I would just underscore, this isn't just a late in game change. The game has started. Schools are opening their doors and welcoming students back in mere weeks. So this isn't a last minute change. This is when things are already in play and districts are ready to go.
Yeah, I think so. Superintendent, you told me a little bit more about the mobile response team, or the mobile team that helps English language learners. Like, when did that start, and would you have to get rid of it?
We are having that conversation right now. No decisions have been made. We've run this program, it's new this year. We made some revisions given some study that we conducted around where our newcomer students are in our district and how the funds were previously being used, which is when I mentioned, we have newcomers all across Jeffco. And so being able to have a mobile team that's pretty flexible and can go to the families has been a game changer for us, because our geography is just so large. So asking families to come to a centralized location doesn't work for our newcomer families. And so it is a small team, but they have a mobile bus that we have retrofitted into a place where families can come and get the equipment, materials, essentials that they need. And then it's also very connected to community resources across different cities in Jeffco, so that they can make connections for families and students who need those connections when they first arrive. And as I mentioned, it's one of the things I'm most worried about. Some of our most vulnerable families are who this team serves, and so we are currently talking about what are we going to do.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part around not having any runway or any timing to be able to figure it out and determine what the best approach might be if these funds don't arrive.
And that started like in 24, 25, so this would be year 2. Thank you.
Sorry, Governor. What is the number that your budget people have told you the state needs to find? And is it with calling a special session to find those funds?
No, the state does not have $80 million. As you know, we balance the budget every year. We've made education a priority. We're fully funding the schools. People knew exactly what they're going to get when I signed the School Finance Act in April. So the state piece is steady. The local piece is steady. There is no additional money to spend. Frankly, a special session would have to be likely about cuts in areas like healthcare that are being cut by the federal government with corresponding impact in our budget. So this is money that if the federal government doesn't get back to the states, again, we pay in, we only get back 90 cents on the dollar. If they don't give this back, these are the actual cuts that the school districts would have to make to services that are important to families.
Jessica?
For the governor, is there any way that the state could respond to try to get the funds?
Certainly the state is. We joined other states. We have joined our Peaceful from Education. Obviously, like in any of these funding issues, we look at all the legal opportunities to pursue funds that should have been obligated already. So we have a very aggressive effort to try to fight for the funds that the federal government has told us that we're going to get, that we've already paid in, and this is no exception to that.
Is the state planning to sue?
Again, we're in a number of lawsuits over funds like that, and we're always looking at all options to protect funding, including turning to the courts.
All right. Anyone?
Well, thank you all for sharing your stories and being part of this. I appreciate that. We hope that there's good news in the next week or two. We don't know that. There could be bad news. So it'll be, if there's good news, we can keep our plans in place. If it's bad news, I know you're all working on how to communicate that to families, to staff, to others. But we are going to do everything we can as a state to fight for these funds, which under law should be distributed to our schools and to our after-school providers. And thank you for sharing a little bit with us today.